There comes a quiet hour in life when striving no longer satisfies and waiting no longer comforts. You sense it most clearly after 40, when noise loses its power and meaning begins asking for the microphone. This is not restlessness, it is timing. And timing, when appointed, does not ask permission. You may feel it in small ways first. Old ambitions no longer excite you. Old fears no longer persuade you. You wake knowing something is unfinished, not in panic, but in certainty. A chapter has closed, and another is insisting on being read. Many believe opportunity belongs to the young. That belief alone causes countless lives to stall, just as wisdom ripens. Spirit does not move by age, it moves by readiness. And readiness often arrives only after experience has softened pride and sharpened discernment. Look back honestly. How many lessons did you need before you could trust yourself? How many disappointments refined your desire? The waiting was not delay, it was preparation. The soil was being turned so something stronger could grow. You may have tried to start again before and felt resistance. Doors did not open. Energy did not gather. That was not failure. It was misalignment with time. Law never says no, it says not yet until the hour agrees. The appointed time is not announced with fireworks. It is recognized by peace. A deep, steady knowing replaces urgency. You stop pushing, you stop explaining. You feel guided rather than driven, and that difference changes everything. Perhaps you fear you waited too long. That thought is the final test. Spirit does not resurrect expired things. It reveals ripe ones. What is meant for you now could not have held you earlier. You were not late. You were becoming. Notice how certain desires return after years of silence. They arrive without desperation, without fantasy. They feel grounded, real, possible. That is not nostalgia. It is alignment reappearing when the mind is finally quiet enough to hear. Most people rush when they are young and freeze when they are older. Wisdom reverses that order. It waits early and moves later. The woman who understands timing does not regret her years, she uses them. You may carry memories of paths not taken. Regret whispers that it is too late. Yet regret is always based on imagined timelines. Law does not compare. It responds. And it responds most powerfully when resistance has burned itself out. Think of how you handle pressure now versus years ago. You pause. You reflect. You choose carefully. That maturity is not slowing you down, it is stabilizing the ground beneath you. What comes next must stand on something firm. The appointed time often arrives disguised as an ending. A job no longer fits. A role feels complete. A relationship shifts. You could cling, but something within you knows release is required for expansion to occur. This is why change after 40 feels different. It is not frantic. It is deliberate. You are not proving anything. You are responding to a call that does not repeat itself loudly, but steadily. Many people mistake comfort for safety. Yet comfort can become the very thing that blocks the next chapter. The appointed time requires movement, not reckless movement, but faithful response. You may ask, what if I fail? That question belongs to an earlier season. Failure belongs to attempts made without clarity. The appointed time carries clarity with it. It does not guarantee ease, but it guarantees alignment. Notice how energy returns when you think about certain possibilities. That is not imagination, it is recognition. Life responds to what is timely, and when something is timely, assistance appears without strain. Others may not understand your shift. They see age where you see direction. They see risk where you feel order. Their clocks are not yours. Timing is individual, and comparison is the fastest way to miss it. The woman entering a new chapter after 40 does not announce herself. She moves quietly. She trusts more deeply. She speaks less, listens more, and chooses with confidence born of knowing what no longer works. This is why earlier chapters had to end. You needed contrast. You needed discernment. You needed to exhaust imitation before authenticity could take the lead. The appointed time belongs to the real you, not the rehearsed one. You may feel a gentle urgency now, not panic, but invitation. A sense that delaying further would be disobedience, not caution. That feeling is not pressure. It is readiness asking for cooperation. Most people ignore this moment because it is subtle. They wait for drama. Spirit prefers order. It whispers, because it knows you are finally able to listen without fear, interrupting every sentence. Another decade can pass in comfort. Nothing would collapse. Nothing would accuse you. And yet something essential would remain untouched. The appointed time does not punish neglect. It simply passes quietly to those willing to move. But if you respond, even imperfectly, something shifts immediately. The mind settles. Resistance softens. Support appears. You feel accompanied instead of alone. Law recognizes movement aligned with time. This chapter will not look like your earlier ones. It will feel steadier, more intentional, less dramatic, and far more powerful. You are not starting over. You are starting from understanding. Do not measure the new chapter by speed. Measure it by rightness. When things are right, they unfold naturally. When they are forced, they exhaust you. The appointed time carries its own rhythm. Listen now, not for excitement, but for confirmation. You already know whether this message is speaking to you. That recognition is the signal. Law never calls without provision. In the days ahead, you may feel the urge to release old explanations. Let them go. You owe no one a justification for obedience. Timing answers only to truth. Watch closely what begins to reorganize itself when you say yes internally. The outer world always follows the inner decision, though it may do so quietly at first. This is not about reclaiming youth. It is about honoring timing. The appointed time is not behind you, it is arriving. And when it does not ask whether you are ready. It asks whether you are willing. Stay with this message. Listen as though it were written into your calendar long ago, because it was. And the moment you recognize your appointed time, the next chapter begins moving toward you. There comes a season in life when striving no longer satisfies, yet restlessness does not feel like lack. It feels deliberate, as though something within has finished one task and is awaiting another. This is not confusion. It is recognition. Recognition that a former chapter has given all it can give, and that something else is quietly insisting upon attention. This season often arrives after 40, not because life diminishes, but because discernment matures. In earlier years, desire is loud and urgency persuasive. Later, noise loses its power. What remains is a steady knowing that no longer needs to argue for itself. That knowing is the first sign of timing. Many mistake this quiet restlessness for dissatisfaction. They believe something is wrong because ambition has softened. Yet ambition was never meant to drive a life forever. It was meant to carry one to the place where wisdom could take over. When ambition rests, meaning begins to speak. The woman who reaches this hour may feel unsettled without being distressed. She is not unhappy, yet she is not complete. She senses that effort alone can no longer carry her forward. This is not failure, it is transition. Transition always feels uncertain to the mind, yet certain to the spirit. Spirit never announces timing with excitement. It announces it with peace. A deep, calm assurance replaces urgency. The desire to push fades. The desire to align grows. One stops forcing outcomes and begins listening for order. This change marks readiness. Looking back, she sees how many lessons were required before this readiness could arrive. How many disappointments refined her discernment. How many false desires had to exhaust themselves before true ones could surface. The waiting was not delay, it was preparation. Many try to begin new chapters too early. Energy does not gather. Doors remain closed. Effort meets resistance. This is often mistaken for failure. In truth, it is protection. Law does not move against timing. It waits until agreement forms. When the appointed time approaches, effort feels different. Instead of strain, there is steadiness. Instead of anxiety, there is clarity. Instead of urgency, there is quiet invitation. The woman feels guided rather than driven, and that distinction changes everything. She may fear she waited too long. That fear belongs to an earlier season. Spirit does not resurrect expired things, it reveals ripe ones. What is meant for this season could not have held her earlier. She was not late. She was becoming. Notice how certain desires return after years of silence. They arrive without fantasy, without desperation. They feel grounded, practical, possible. This is not nostalgia. It is alignment reappearing when the mind is finally quiet enough to hear. Most people rush when they are young and freeze when they are older. Wisdom reverses that order. It waits early and moves later. The woman who understands timing does not regret her years. She uses them. She sees now how her earlier self handled pressure. She rushed to decide, to prove, to secure. Now she pauses, she reflects. She chooses deliberately. This is not slowness, it is stability. What comes next must stand on something firm. The appointed time often announces itself through endings. A role no longer fits. A position feels complete. A relationship shifts. The temptation is to cling. Yet, something within knows that release is required for expansion to occur. This is why change after 40 feels different. It is not frantic, it is deliberate. One is no longer proving worth or seeking approval. One is responding to a call that does not shout, but does not withdraw either. Many mistake comfort for safety, yet comfort can quietly become confinement. The appointed time requires movement, not reckless movement, but faithful response. Faithful response honors wisdom without surrendering to fear. Questions may arise. What if I fail? That question belongs to an earlier chapter. Failure belongs to attempts made without clarity. The appointed time carries clarity with it. It does not guarantee ease, but it guarantees alignment. Energy returns when the thought of certain possibilities arises. This energy is not imagination. It is recognition. Life responds to what is timely. When something is timely, assistance appears without strain. Others may not understand this shift. They see age where she sees direction. They see risk where she feels order. Their clocks are not hers. Timing is individual, and comparison is the fastest way to miss it. The woman entering a new chapter after 40 does not announce herself. She moves quietly. She trusts deeply. She speaks less and listens more. She chooses with confidence, born of knowing what no longer works. Earlier chapters had to end. She needed contrast. She needed discernment. She needed to exhaust imitation before authenticity could lead. The appointed time belongs to the real self, not the rehearsed one. A gentle urgency may be felt now, not panic, but invitation. A sense that delaying further would be disobedience rather than caution. This feeling is not pressure. It is readiness, asking for cooperation. Most people miss this moment because it is subtle. They wait for drama. Spirit prefers order. It whispers because it knows fear no longer needs to interrupt every sentence. Another decade could pass in comfort. Nothing would collapse. Nothing would accuse. And yet something essential would remain untouched. The appointed time does not punish neglect. It simply passes quietly to those willing to move. But the moment she responds, even imperfectly, something shifts immediately. The mind settles. Resistance softens. Support appears. She feels accompanied rather than alone. Law recognizes movement aligned with time. This chapter will not resemble earlier ones. It will feel steadier, more intentional, less dramatic, and far more powerful. She is not starting over. She is starting from understanding. The new chapter does not require speed. It requires rightness. When things are right, they unfold naturally. When they are forced, they exhaust. The appointed time carries its own rhythm. She listens now not for excitement, but for confirmation. She already knows whether this message speaks to her. That recognition is the signal. Law never calls without provision. This is not about reclaiming youth. It is about honoring timing. The appointed time is not behind her. It is arriving. And when it does not ask whether she is ready. It asks whether she is willing. And the moment willingness is given, the next chapter begins moving toward her. One of the most persistent illusions a woman must release as she enters a new chapter after 40 is the belief that opportunity belongs to youth. This belief is not born of truth, but of comparison. It is learned quietly through watching others hurry, succeed early, or fail publicly, while one's own path unfolds with greater patience and less display. Spirit does not measure life by years. It measures by readiness. Readiness is not eagerness. It is not ambition. It is not the restless desire to prove worth or outrun fear. Readiness is a condition of inner agreement, formed only after experience has refined judgment and softened pride. In youth, confidence often exceeds understanding. Desire rushes ahead of discernment. Many doors open early, yet cannot be held because the foundation beneath them is thin. Law allows this, not as punishment, but as instruction. What is gained too early often dissolves quickly. The woman who arrives at readiness later has earned it honestly. Her years were not wasted. They were shaping perception. Each disappointment clarified what she would no longer tolerate. Each delay taught patience. Each ending stripped away illusion. What remains is essential. She may look back and see moments when she felt behind. Others seemed to move faster. Careers advanced. Lives appeared settled. Yet those comparisons were based on outer display, not inner stability. Stability cannot be rushed. Spirit often waits until the need to imitate has been exhausted. Imitation belongs to learning. Authenticity belongs to mastery. The appointed time arrives when one no longer wishes to be anyone else. Many women fear they waited too long to begin what truly matters. That fear misunderstands law. Law does not punish delay when delay was required for preparation. It does not reward haste when haste produces collapse. What is meant for this season could not have sustained the woman she once was. Her earlier self may have wanted it, imagined it, or reached for it. But wanting is not readiness. Wanting is hunger. Readiness is digestion. She understands now why earlier attempts to begin again felt heavy. Energy did not gather. Support did not appear. Enthusiasm faded quickly. This was not failure. It was misalignment with time. Law never says no. It says not yet, until inner agreement forms. When agreement forms, resistance dissolves. This is why the appointed time feels different. There is no urgency to convince others, no pressure to announce direction. There is a calm certainty that does not need defense. That certainty is readiness recognized. Others may still see age where she sees clarity. They may say she is brave or risky or impractical. They do not feel what she feels. Their clocks are not hers. Timing is personal, and comparison is always misleading. She notices now that she chooses differently than she once did. She no longer chases possibility. She listens for fit. Fit brings peace. Peace signals alignment. The woman who begins her true work later often moves with surprising steadiness. She has nothing to prove. She has already survived disappointment. She has already released illusion. This steadiness attracts cooperation naturally. Many successful people began their most meaningful work after 40, though their earlier years were necessary preparation. Others see only the outcome and call it luck. They do not see the patience that shaped readiness. When she moves now, she moves with confidence rooted in experience, not bravado. Her words carry weight because they are few. Her decisions are respected because they are deliberate. This is why spirit often waits. Immature desire collapses under responsibility. Mature readiness carries it with grace. She no longer believes opportunity has passed her by. Opportunity is not a single door missed. It is a series of openings that appear when one is able to walk through them without distortion. The belief that youth owns opportunity costs many women another decade of waiting. They stand at the threshold of readiness but hesitate, believing the hour belongs to someone else. Law responds to belief faithfully. The moment she releases that belief, energy returns. Ideas clarify. Assistance appears. Movement feels natural. The delay ends not because time changed, but because agreement did. She sees now that wisdom ripens slowly, like fruit. Fruit taken too early lacks sweetness. Fruit taken at the right hour nourishes fully. No one regrets waiting for ripeness. The woman who trusts timing begins to respect her own pace. She stops apologizing for it. Apology weakens authority. Acceptance strengthens it. Others sense this acceptance and respond differently. They listen more carefully. They offer support without being asked. They trust her judgment because she trusts it herself. This is not arrogance. It is self-knowledge earned honestly. She understands now that age does not limit life. Confusion limits life. Readiness expands it. Her years did not close doors. They opened her eyes. What she sees now, she could not have seen earlier. The appointed time does not rush. It arrives when resistance has burned itself out, and clarity stands alone. When it arrives, it brings its own strength. She no longer fears beginning again. Beginning again is not starting over. It is continuing with understanding. The woman who knows this stops measuring her life against others. She measures it against truth. Truth never hurries. Truth arrives exactly when it can be lived. This understanding alone saves years. Years once spent doubting readiness, explaining delay, or believing opportunity belonged elsewhere. Clarity redeems time quickly. The new chapter does not ask for youth. It asks for willingness. Willingness answers readiness, and readiness answers law. And when law is answered, life begins to move. There comes a moment in every true transition when something familiar must end, not because it failed, but because it fulfilled its purpose. This is often misunderstood. Many cling to what once served them, believing continuity guarantees safety. Yet law requires completion before expansion. What is unfinished cannot carry what is new. The woman entering a new chapter after 40 often feels this ending first. A role no longer fits her spirit. A position once satisfying feels narrow. A way of being that once felt secure begins to feel heavy. This discomfort is not decline. It is completion asking to be honored. Endings frighten those who mistake identity for assignment. An assignment may change without diminishing the one who carried it. When an assignment is complete, continuing it drains energy meant for the next expression of life. She looks back and sees how long she tried to remain where growth had ceased. She adjusted, explained, endured, and waited for renewal that never came. Law does not renew what has completed its cycle. It replaces it. Many women remain exhausted not from work, but from remaining too long in chapters that ask to close. Fatigue often signals completion, not weakness. The fear of endings is often the fear of uncertainty. Yet uncertainty is the doorway through which order enters. Order does not arrive while hands remain full of what has ended. Spirit signals completion quietly. Interest fades, motivation thins, joy recedes. The mind attempts to revive what the soul has released. This creates conflict. Conflict drains power. The woman who understands law does not dramatize endings. She respects them. Respect allows release without resentment. Resentment binds what must be freed. She sees now why earlier attempts to begin anew failed. She had not yet honored what needed to end. Law does not build upon denial. It builds upon truth acknowledged. Many successful people experienced profound endings before their most meaningful work began. To others, these endings looked like loss. To them, they felt like relief mixed with uncertainty. Relief signals alignment returning. Others may not understand why she lets go of something stable. They see security where she feels stagnation. Their vision is based on continuity. Hers is based on growth. Completion is not dramatic. It is quiet recognition. Recognition brings peace. Peace confirms rightness. The woman notices that once she accepts an ending inwardly, resistance softens outwardly. Circumstances reorganize, conversations change, support appears. Law responds quickly when truth is accepted. She understands now that clinging prolongs discomfort. Release accelerates movement. Movement restores energy. Many women delay endings out of loyalty. Loyalty misapplied becomes self-betrayal. True loyalty honors growth. She also understands now that endings do not erase the past. They complete it. Completion gives meaning to what came before. Meaning transforms memory from burden into foundation. The fear of being unfinished often keeps women trapped. Yet being unfinished is not failure. It is transition. Transition is life moving forward. She sees now that earlier chapters were necessary. They taught discipline, patience, and discernment. They were not mistakes. They were preparation. The new chapter requires space. Space is created only through release. Release must occur inwardly before it appears outwardly. She stops asking why something no longer works. That question belongs to denial. She asks instead what is ready to take its place. That question belongs to alignment. Others may call her brave for honoring an ending. She knows she is simply obedient. Obedience to timing prevents years of unnecessary struggle. She also understands why endings often appear before clarity about what comes next. Clarity follows release. It rarely precedes it. Law fills emptied space swiftly. This understanding saves years, years once spent forcing renewal where completion had already occurred. Years once spent hoping for revival instead of allowing replacement. She no longer fears endings. She respects them as signals. Signals guide life efficiently. Endings do not mean loss of identity. They mean return to essence. Essence carries forward intact. The woman who honors completion moves into her next chapter lighter, steadier, and more available for what is ready to arrive. This is why law insists upon endings. Without them, expansion would overwhelm. With them, Expansion feels natural. What closes now does so with dignity. What opens next does so with strength. And in honoring completion, the woman finds herself perfectly positioned for what follows. When a woman has honored the ending of what is complete, she is brought face to face with another truth that governs all right progress. Life does not advance through force, but through timing. Force belongs to impatience, timing belongs to law, and law, when obeyed, arranges events with an intelligence far beyond personal effort. Many believe that success requires pushing, insisting, or striving harder when resistance appears. This belief is learned early and practiced faithfully, yet it produces exhaustion rather than fulfillment. Force may create movement, but it rarely creates harmony. What is forced must be maintained by force. The woman who enters her new chapter after 40 begins to see this clearly. She recalls earlier years when she pushed doors that did not open, pressed forward when energy was thin, and insisted upon outcomes that never settled. She thought persistence would eventually prevail. In truth, persistence without timing only deepens fatigue. Law never resists. When resistance appears, it is not law pushing back, it is timing, refusing to agree. Timing is exact. It does not respond to desire alone. It responds to alignment between readiness and hour. She understands now why earlier attempts felt heavy. The burden was not the work itself, but the misalignment with time. Work aligned with time feels supported. Work misaligned with time feels lonely. When timing agrees, effort changes its character. Action feels lighter. Assistance appears without strain. Circumstances cooperate instead of obstruct. What once required explanation now unfolds naturally. Others describe these moments as everything falling into place. They call it luck or coincidence. They do not see the years of preparation that preceded the opening, nor the obedience that honored timing instead of forcing outcome. The woman sees now that law never withheld opportunity. It waited for her to stop demanding it prematurely. Demand implies lack. Timing implies trust. She notices that when she moves now, she does not rush. She takes steps deliberately, without urgency. Urgency once disguised fear. Fear pressed for movement before clarity arrived. Clarity now leads. This does not mean she hesitates endlessly. It means she moves when peace accompanies the idea. Peace is the sign of agreement. Anxiety is the sign of resistance. Many women confuse urgency with inspiration. Inspiration is calm. It does not argue. It does not threaten loss. It simply presents itself and waits for consent. The woman understands now that law organizes life from within outward. Inner consent precedes outer arrangement. When consent is given at the right hour, events reorganize swiftly. She recalls moments when she attempted to begin something noble before its time. Enthusiasm faded, support wavered, doubt crept in. She thought she lacked discipline. In truth, the hour had not agreed. Now, when she feels the quiet readiness of timing, doubt does not intrude. The mind settles, the body relaxes. Movement feels natural rather than compelled. Others may still push her to act faster. They measure progress by speed. She measures progress by alignment. Alignment does not hurry. It arrives intact. She understands now why law often waits until desire is purified of impatience. Impatience wants outcome. Timing wants order. Order sustains outcome. This is why many second chapters succeed where first attempts failed. The hunger to prove has faded. The need to impress has softened. What remains is clarity and willingness. She no longer tries to persuade life to cooperate. Persuasion implies resistance. She assumes cooperation when timing agrees. Assumption carries authority. When she acts now, she feels accompanied. Support appears from unexpected places. Conversations open doors. Resources gather. These are not rewards. They are responses to timing honored. Others say she seems fortunate. She knows she is simply aligned. She also understands now that timing does not require perfection. It requires obedience. Obedience does not mean certainty of outcome. It means trust in order. When force was her guide, she grew tired. When timing became her guide, she grew steady. Steadiness preserves strength. She sees how many years were lost forcing beginnings that were not yet ripe. 10 years pushing, 20 years insisting, 30 years believing effort alone would carry her. Timing redeems these years quickly once honored. The woman now respects pauses as much as movement. Pauses are not delays. They are alignments forming. She notices that when she waits without fear, waiting does not feel empty. It feels expectant. Expectancy without tension signals trust. Trust invites arrangement. Others may fear that she is doing nothing. She knows she is allowing law to organize. When movement comes, it comes decisively. There is no scrambling, no second guessing. Action feels inevitable, rather than risky. This is the mark of right timing. What is timely feels necessary, not dramatic. She understands now why force once drained her joy. Joy does not survive where resistance is constant. Timing restores joy quietly. She no longer measures progress by how much effort is expended. She measures it by how much peace accompanies the step. Peace does not guarantee ease, but it guarantees rightness. Rightness carries its own strength. The woman entering her new chapter trusts timing more than impulse. Impulse rushes. Timing leads. This trust changes everything. Life begins to respond as an ally rather than an obstacle. Events feel arranged rather than random. And so she moves not because she is pushing, but because the way has opened. This is how law organizes a life that honors timing, and this is how force gives way to order. One of the final illusions to dissolve as a woman enters a new chapter after 40 is the belief that she has arrived too late. This belief is subtle, persuasive, and deeply rooted in comparison. It whispers that the best years are behind her, that opportunity has already chosen others, and that what remains must be smaller, safer, or merely sufficient. Law recognizes this belief instantly and responds to it with precision. The fear of being too late does not arise from truth. It arises from imagined timelines. These timelines are borrowed, not ordained. They are built from watching others begin early, succeed quickly, or fail publicly, and then assuming that life moves by a single schedule. Spirit does not operate by shared clocks. It moves by readiness alone. The woman who listens carefully now sees that nothing truly meant for her could have arrived earlier. Had it come sooner, it would have overwhelmed rather than sustained her. She understands now that desire is not proof of readiness. Desire may precede preparation by many years. She recalls seasons when she longed for change but lacked steadiness. Enthusiasm rose quickly and faded just as fast. Support wavered, confidence thinned. Those moments were not missed chances. They were rehearsals. Rehearsals prepare without demanding completion. The fear of lateness often intensifies when desire returns after long silence. A calling reappears, gentler and clearer than before. Instead of excitement, fear answers first, saying, "You should have done this years ago." That voice is the final test. Passing it restores momentum. The woman understands now that spirit does not resurrect expired things. It reveals ripe ones. What returns now does so because it can finally be carried without distortion. Maturity steadies desire. Wisdom directs it. Others may say she is brave for beginning again. She knows she is not beginning again. She is continuing from understanding. Continuation carries far more strength than repetition. She sees now why regret is built upon imagined alternatives. Regret asks what might have been if she had moved sooner. Law asks what can be now that resistance has ended. Law always works in the present. The fear of being too late often keeps women frozen at the very moment readiness has arrived. They mistake ripeness for risk. They confuse calm clarity with diminished ambition. In truth, ambition has refined itself into purpose. She notices how different her desires feel now. They are no longer dramatic. They do not demand escape or fantasy. They feel grounded, practical, and aligned with who she has become. That grounded quality is timing recognized. Others may not feel this readiness. They may caution her, reminding her of age, history, or responsibility. Their concern belongs to their own timelines. Law responds only to her agreement. She understands now that many women delay obedience not because they doubt the call, but because they fear judgment. Judgment does not govern law. Agreement does. The belief that youth owns opportunity costs many women another decade of hesitation. They stand at the threshold of readiness and hesitate, believing arrival means departure from safety. Safety built on fear is confinement. The woman who releases this fear feels immediate relief. Relief is not proof of recklessness. It is proof of alignment. Alignment always brings peace first. She no longer asks whether it is too late. That question dissolves once timing is trusted. Trust ends debate. Debate belongs to fear. She sees now that law does not compare beginnings. It responds to direction. Direction chosen at the right hour carries force beyond early attempts. The fear of being too late also disguises itself as humility. It says, "Others deserve this more." This humility is fear seeking protection. True humility obeys guidance without measuring worth. She chooses obedience instead of apology. Apology weakens movement. Obedience strengthens it. Others begin to sense her steadiness. They describe her as settled, confident, and certain. They may assume she has always been this way. They do not see the years that shaped her readiness. She understands now that age does not limit expansion. Confusion limits expansion. Confusion has lifted. The woman also sees how much time is saved when this fear is released. 10 years are saved by refusing comparison. 20 years by trusting readiness. 30 years by honoring timing instead of imagined schedules. Time does not punish obedience. It accelerates it. She no longer rushes to make up for lost years. Rushing would contradict timing. She moves steadily, allowing law to organize without interference. When she acts now, there is less waste, fewer detours, fewer reversals. This efficiency belongs to maturity. Others marvel at how smoothly things unfold. They call it good fortune. She knows it is fear relinquished. She understands now why fear of lateness was the final barrier. It tested whether she trusted law or history. Law prevailed. This release restores energy immediately. The heaviness lifts. Curiosity returns. Engagement follows. She no longer looks backward with longing. She looks forward with readiness. What lies ahead does not require youth. It requires truth. And truth, once accepted, moves life forward without delay. As a woman enters her new chapter with readiness instead of urgency, she begins to sense a quiet authority settling within her. This authority is unlike anything she knew in earlier years. It does not demand attention, nor does it seek validation. It is steady, composed, and unafraid of silence. It does not hurry, because it knows where it is going. This authority is born of experience, but not of bitterness. Experience alone does not confer power. It is the understanding distilled from experience that strengthens the inner voice. The woman who has lived, observed, erred, endured, and reflected carries within her a discernment that cannot be borrowed or taught prematurely. In earlier years, authority was often confused with confidence. Confidence rose and fell with success. It depended upon outcomes, approval, and momentum. The authority that comes with maturity does not fluctuate. It remains intact even when outcomes are not yet visible. Others feel this authority before it is spoken. They listen more carefully when she speaks. They do not interrupt as often. They trust her judgment instinctively. Authority creates cooperation without command. She notices that she no longer feels compelled to explain herself. Explanation once served as defense. Defense implies threat. Threat dissolves authority. Silence now communicates more than explanation ever did. This change surprises her at first. She realizes how much energy was once spent justifying choices, smoothing reactions, and anticipating objections. That energy has returned to her now, free for creation rather than containment. The woman sees clearly that maturity has not weakened her voice, it has purified it. Words spoken now carry weight because they are few. They are chosen deliberately, without embellishment or fear. She understands now why younger ambition often collapses under pressure. Ambition seeks recognition. Authority seeks alignment. Alignment sustains. Many successful people are recognized only after they stop seeking recognition. This is not coincidence. Recognition follows authority naturally. The woman also notices that she is no longer reactive. Reaction once governed her choices. Reaction belongs to fear. Response belongs to authority. Response is measured, intentional, and grounded. She handles conflict differently now. She does not rush to resolve or avoid it. She waits for clarity. Clarity arrives when reaction subsides. Law responds to clarity, not agitation. Others describe her as wise. Wisdom is not accumulation of facts. Wisdom is the ability to wait without fear and act without hesitation. This ability belongs to those who trust timing. She sees now how authority attracts opportunity. People seek her counsel. Doors open through conversation rather than effort. Support appears through relationships formed naturally. This authority also alters how she handles disappointment. Disappointment once felt personal. Now it feels instructive. Instruction is received without self-reproach. She understands now that maturity has refined her faith. Faith no longer depends on outcome. It rests in order. Order does not fail. The woman also becomes aware that her presence steadies others. Panic calms around her. Confusion softens. This influence is not intentional. It is the natural effect of alignment. She no longer feels the need to compete. Competition implies scarcity. Authority implies sufficiency. Sufficiency invites abundance. Others may still race, compare, or strive. She observes without judgment. Judgment would separate her from them. Understanding unites. She also recognizes that authority requires maintenance. Old habits of explanation or doubt may attempt return. Awareness prevents them from reclaiming power. She practices listening more than speaking. Listening refines discernment. Discernment strengthens authority. This authority changes how law responds to her. Requests become recognitions. Desires become directions. Law moves swiftly where authority is present. She understands now why so many women struggle to begin anew. They attempt to act without claiming authority. Action without authority exhausts. Authority without action stagnates. Balance produces movement. She balances effortlessly now. Action follows clarity. Clarity follows trust. Trust follows experience integrated. The years she once feared have become her foundation. What she learned through endurance now supports her expansion. Others may say she has changed. She has not changed. She has consolidated. This consolidation saves years. Years once lost in scattered effort are gathered into focused movement. Time feels fuller, not rushed. She also notices that her joy is quieter. It does not spike dramatically. It settles. Settled joy sustains. She understands now that authority after 40 is not loud, because it does not need to announce itself. It operates steadily. The woman entering her new chapter carries this authority naturally. She does not perform it. She embodies it, and life responds accordingly. Every true chapter in life begins not with action, but with consent. Before anything moves outwardly, something settles inwardly. The woman who has reached her appointed time does not rush to announce it. She feels it as a quiet agreement forming between herself and law. This agreement changes everything, though little may appear changed at first. Consent is often misunderstood. Many believe consent means confidence, certainty, or enthusiasm. In truth, consent is willingness without argument. It is the simple inward yes given without conditions. Law does not require excitement. It requires agreement. The woman who says yes at the appointed time does so calmly. She is no longer negotiating with fear, nor demanding reassurance from circumstance. She has learned that reassurance follows obedience, not the other way around. To wait for certainty is to delay indefinitely. This is why so many new chapters never begin. They wait for permission that never arrives. Permission does not come from others, nor from evidence. It comes from inner alignment, recognized and honored. She notices that once consent is given, resistance begins to dissolve almost immediately. Not all obstacles vanish, but they lose their weight. The mind quiets, the body relaxes, confusion gives way to direction. Law recognizes the signal and begins rearranging conditions quietly. Others may not notice anything at first. That is, as it should be. The most important movements occur beneath the surface. Seeds break ground unseen. Roots strengthen before growth appears. The woman understands now that saying yes internally is more powerful than any outward declaration. Words spoken publicly without inner consent scatter energy. Consent gathers it. She does not feel the need to justify her decision. Justification belongs to doubt. Doubt weakens authority. Authority rests. Others may ask why she is changing direction now. She does not explain in detail. Explanation invites debate. Debate distracts from alignment. She answers simply or not at all. She understands now why comparison is the fastest way to miss one's appointed time. Comparison measures life against foreign clocks. Law responds only to the clock within. The woman entering this chapter knows that her path will not resemble anyone else's. It does not need to. What is meant for her is designed to fit her exactly, shaped by her years, her lessons, her discernment. She sees now that the earlier chapters prepared her for this one precisely. Nothing was wasted. Even delays sharpened discernment. Even disappointments clarified desire. This recognition dissolves regret completely. Regret requires the belief that something went wrong. She sees now that nothing went wrong. Everything led here. She also understands that consent must be renewed daily. One yes is not enough. Each day presents new opportunities to hesitate or to align. Alignment practiced daily becomes character. When doubt appears, she does not dramatize it. She returns to consent. Consent steadies doubt without argument. She also understands that obedience does not guarantee comfort. Comfort belongs to stability. Growth belongs to obedience. Growth feels unfamiliar at first, but it carries peace beneath the unfamiliarity. Others may misinterpret her calm as passivity. They do not see the strength required to wait without fear and move without force. This strength is invisible yet unmistakable. The woman notices that assistance begins to appear in subtle ways. Conversations shift, invitations arise, ideas clarify. These are not coincidences. They are responses. Law never delays response to alignment. It may delay visibility, but movement begins immediately. She understands now that her role is not to manage outcomes, but to remain aligned. Management belongs to fear. Alignment belongs to trust. Trust does not mean absence of effort. It means effort directed rather than scattered. Directed effort multiplies effect. Others begin to describe her as purposeful. Purpose is not something she sought. It emerged when consent replaced resistance. She no longer fears making mistakes. Mistakes corrected early cost little. Mistakes avoided through hesitation cost years. She acts now when guided, even if the way is not fully visible. Visibility follows movement. Movement does not follow visibility. This is the great difference between earlier chapters and this one. Earlier chapters demanded proof. This chapter requires trust. She trusts now because she has seen law work faithfully over time. Law never failed her. Misalignment delayed her. The new chapter unfolds steadily. There is no rush to finish. Completion will come in its time. She understands now that life after 40 is not about reclaiming youth. It is about honoring wisdom. Wisdom carries authority youth cannot imitate. Others may still live by urgency. She lives by timing. Timing organizes life effortlessly. The woman rests in this understanding. Rest is not idleness. It is inner stillness maintained while life moves. She knows now that the appointed time does not repeat itself loudly. It speaks once, clearly, and waits. She has answered. This answer begins the next chapter not dramatically, but definitively. She has not started over. She has started from truth. And truth, once accepted, does not retreat. This is how a woman enters her new chapter. This is how the appointed time is honored. And this is how life, long prepared, finally begins to move forward with grace.